Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have some very good news out of the state of Virginia for Donald Trump. We're getting more and more data points that signal to more low propensity Republican voters turning out than low propensity Democrat voters. And that's really what we want to look for because the overall numbers when it comes to the early voting, it was always going to be better for Republicans based on the variables of this election, meaning this year Trump embraces the early vote. In 2020, he didn't. A lot of his supporters did day of. He told them not to do the early vote. And also, you do have this year, not during the pandemic, there were a lot of healthy Democrats that were 25-year-olds that decided to do mail-in or early voting in 2020. A lot of them are going to go to the polls this year day of, although Trump still is going to win day of vote. There's no doubt about that. And Democrats are still going to win early voting. It's not going to be nearly as lopsided as it was in 2020. So the numbers were always going to improve, but we want to see in the Republican counties more of an uptick, more enthusiasm than the Democratic counties to see if we can see any of those low propensity voters turn out for Trump rather than turning out for Harris. And you can see the early voting numbers. This is a comparison versus 2020. The Democrats are down 1.3. The Republicans are up 7.7. You can see plus minus from this point in 2020. So that is a decent gain for the Republicans. You do also have this Virginia early voting plus mail-in voting. This was updated a few days ago. As of the 25th of September, you can see all of the top districts that are voting and have the most votes in are heavy Republican districts. I will say this was done before there was an update on, I think, Fairfax County, which is, the biggest Democrat district. And so this isn't completely accurate, but it still goes to show you the exact consistent trend we've seen where it's all of the heavy Republican districts winning the early voting by a lot. And this is likely to change, but still, this is stuff we were not seeing in 2020. There's a number of reasons why that was, but it does seem like there is new enthusiasm for Trump in Virginia to where it seems like a lot of people are thinking Virginia is going to be close. Maybe he still loses the state, but if he loses it by a smaller margin, you would have to say that's probably pretty good news for other states. Although I will say Virginia is a little bit of a different case with Youngkin, but still it is good news. If you lose Virginia by 3 points, do we really think he's going to lose North Carolina? It seems very unlikely at that point, and it seems like Virginia will be at least within 5 or 6 points. Trump's going to cut into that lead some. You go back to 2020 versus where we are today with Youngkin coming in with, you look at Virginia and their opinion of Harris versus Trump in terms of the approval. I'd like to get like a big poll done with a bunch of crosstabs in Virginia because from what I've seen in the polls with the approval, Harris and Trump are very close together, which is amazing news for Trump when it comes to approval rating. And then you've got Youngkin sitting plus 15 or plus 16, and he's campaigning for Trump, and they're possibly going to be doing a rally together. This is very good news for Donald Trump. You've got a new Minnesota poll from Rasmussen coming out and saying Harris is up by 3. That's a really good poll for Trump for sure. When it comes to that, obviously liberals are going to say Rasmussen, they're biased to the right. Their history has really not proven that to be true. They have actually overestimated the Democrats slightly in 2020 to have Harris be up by 3. I think everyone thinks Virginia is going to be a little bit easier to win than Minnesota because of Youngkin. By the way, people talk about Walz and they say that's why she's going to win Minnesota. Walz has basically no impact on Minnesota, and Vance has basically no impact on Ohio. Both the VP candidates, they didn't really move the needle. That's why everyone thought, well, maybe Trump will pick Tulsi or Youngkin, especially for Virginia. And then everyone thought Harris would pick Shapiro. Neither of them ended up getting picked, and Walz really is not going to help with Minnesota at all. Vance is really not going to help with Ohio. So the fact that Minnesota is close really doesn't surprise me when it comes to that. You also do have a new Arizona poll. This is the big one. USA Today, this is a historically very liberal pollster. This was a poll done a few days ago. Trump sitting plus 6 in Arizona. And you have to wonder, man, if we get a few more polls out of Arizona and maybe even Georgia, but the Democrats really want to win Georgia. But Arizona right now, it is trending to Trump, and you would have to think, there's been some really bad. There was a Fox News poll that had Kari Lake down by 13, but Trump up by 3 or 4. Obviously, we don't believe there's going to be that drastic of a difference when it comes to the president versus the Senate race. That's ridiculous. It is going to be hard for Kari Lake to win, but if Trump can carry Arizona by 5.5, I think Kari Lake will probably win. I think that would be pretty surprising if he won by that type of margin, but it is looking like at least a 3-point victory in Arizona right now. And we'll have to see if the Democrats do utilize resources and actually head and do another trip to Arizona and Nevada in the final month, depending on how much they think they can win it. I would pretty much guarantee there's probably going to be more stops in North Carolina and Georgia and also the Rust Belt rather than Arizona and Nevada. I'm not saying they gave those states up, but it does seem like the past week and a half that the Democrats are less bullish on their chances in Arizona and they're focusing on North Carolina and Georgia. And to me, there's a few polls recently that have reflected it. I'm sure they were originally getting internal polling that said that, but now we're getting real polls. I mean, Trump +6, that is a healthy lead. That's like outside of the margin of error. So I mean, you're up by 5, 6 in some of these polls. That's like a Harris, Minnesota type poll to where we think Minnesota for sure is going to Harris. You're getting polls this late in the ball game with Trump up by 6 in Arizona. I mean, this is looking very good in the state of Arizona when it comes to that. You've got Nate Silver with his model. He's got Harris up to a 58% chance. With these models, this is what they do. They'll factor in all the crap polls with all the swing. I'm honestly not sure exactly why Harris keeps going up, though, because I think Trump's gotten a few great days of polling recently, especially from New York Times in specific. But listen, it is what it is. When you've got these models and you factor in these liberal pollsters that have Harris up by 5 or 6 in Pennsylvania, unfortunately, this is the result you're going to get. Silver's model had Hillary with a 76% chance to win the election in 2016. I don't know what it was in 2020 with Biden, but as long as Trump keeps this close, I'm really not worried about that. You do have Trump and Zelensky meeting at Trump Tower. So yeah, we knew this was going to happen. You can see I'm walking in right there, but we knew this was going to happen. This is good. Get the dialogue going for peace. And really, this is Trump signaling that he can talk to Putin, he can talk to Zelensky. The whole liberal argument was, he can't talk to Zelensky. Zelensky hates him. They're not going to be in agreement when it comes to a peace deal. Well, then why is he meeting with Trump? I think Zelensky knows that Trump is very likely going to win, and that's why you're seeing more and more of these foreign leaders come out and say they're going to meet with Trump when it comes to that. You've got this from the LA Times. With an election looming, the U.S. is approving citizenship applications at the fastest speed in years. Well, isn't that just amazing? It is funny that they would even say that. But overall, I would say these early ballot numbers do look very good for Trump. When this updates, I would imagine there's going to be some of those Democratic districts move up a little bit. But I mean, you've got Republican +16 traditionally, +21, +33, +50. They're all doing the early voting, mainly in person voting, and they're all going for Trump, which is pretty rare from a Virginia, a state that Trump lost by 10 points. I mean, I think it's a guarantee. Trump's not going to lose the state by 10 points, probably not even 5 points based off of these numbers that we're seeing in Virginia, along with a few of the polls. There was a poll out of Virginia I saw that had her up by 8, but there were also polls. I mean, it was kind of an outlier. It had the Senate races like 17-point difference. It's ridiculous, but most of the polls have Virginia 3 to 5 points in favor of Harris, and even Pennsylvania looks like it's potential, or excuse me, even Minnesota looks like it's potentially within 5 points in terms of that. So you get some of those states, like especially like a Virginia and a Minnesota, potentially in play. Virginia more so than Minnesota. Now you're expanding your math and you're making it easier, and you do like these early voting numbers, but we did expect this to happen. This is not a specific, I mean, if this was a similar comparison to 2020 to where it was the same variables, this would be crazy. And it still is very good, but it is different variables with Trump really against the early voting. Now he's embraced it, along with the fact that Democrats, there's going to be more day of voting, but it's not going to be that different. I really don't think. So to me, these numbers, they do mean something in terms of Trump's enthusiasm, Trump getting new people to the ballot box voting. In Virginia, the enthusiasm seems to be up. And also, we've got really good early voting numbers out of Pennsylvania. And then obviously the great polls out of Arizona. So right now, Arizona, I mean, Nevada, you could say is 50-50. That's what pretty much everyone says. I think Trump's going to eke out a victory in Nevada by probably a point, maybe a point and a half. Arizona looks amazing. I would say Georgia, the last 5 or 6 polls, even Real Clear Politics, they've got Trump up in like all the last 5 or 6 polls by 3.5 points. So you're getting, and then what are they going to have to rely on? All of the Rust Belt in North Carolina? That's their plan, and try and steal Georgia again. It seems like at this point Trump has a lot better chance in terms of all the paths that he has than Harris, especially if he can take away Arizona and Nevada. That's like 17 more electoral votes you're taking away from her, and then you're really honing in on keeping North Carolina or taking back Georgia. One of those two. You take Pennsylvania, the election's over. So there are many, either you take Georgia, or excuse me, you take Virginia. Now you're talking about possibly losing the entire Rust Belt and still winning comfortably if you take Virginia with the help of Youngkin. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.